So it's Memorial Day weekend, and I'm getting ready to make some portobello mushroom burgers, and I'm going to barbecue them. And so this is the first time I barbecued them. I've been a liveaboard for 20 years now. Actually, next month it'll be 20 years that I've lived on a boat. I've had two different boats. This is my second big boat that I've lived on. And I've never barbecued on either one. So this is the first. My neighbor put their beautiful Cabo Rico sailboat up for sale, and they had a couple barbecues that they were getting rid of. So I ended up with one of them. And so I mounted it on my boat outside. And so what I got going here is I marinated the portobello mushrooms in, and they're in here. So I marinated them in olive oil with balsamic vinegar, and I used this organic Italian seasoning. So I poured some of this in there, some salt and pepper, and I put a little bit of paprika in, just a little, and then minced garlic. And so now I'm going to go ahead, and I already chopped the onions, and I'm getting ready to go ahead and slice the tomatoes. And so I've suffered with hip pain several years, and I found out that lectins, which is a protein in some foods, causes bad joint pain. So I try to avoid lectins as much as I can, though I will be eating corn on the cob. So corn is very high in lectins. So I do go off of my low lectin diet quite a bit. And as soon as I start getting joint pain, I start cutting back on foods that are high in lectins. So tomatoes are very high in lectins. Mainly it's just the skins and the seeds. And so people that suffer with arthritis, tomatoes are one of the worst foods you can eat. But if you peel them and remove the seeds, then they're not really a problem. So I'm going to show how I do that right now. Put these over here. And what I do is these are going to be going on portobello mushroom burgers. So in order to remove the stems or the skin and the seeds, I cut pretty thick slices here, because there's not going to be a lot left of them when I remove especially the seeds and part of the skin. So let's see what happens. So I cut them about this thick, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut all of them, slice them first, and then I'll remove them one by one, the seeds and the skin. So as you can see, they're pretty thick, but there's not going to be a whole lot left of it when I'm done here. I had really bad joint pain, suffered with it in my hip for several years, and it was getting so bad I was almost to the point where I couldn't walk. And so I found out about lectins and thought, okay, well, I'll try cutting back on lectins. And the first day, I totally stopped eating any foods with lectins, and there's a lot of foods that have lectins in them. And I found this out by a doctor named Dr. Stephen Gundry, and he's on YouTube, so you can look him up, and he has a list of foods that are high in lectins and foods that don't have lectins. And when when I first tried this, I totally stopped eating any foods with lectins. The hardest for me was bread. Grains are high in lectins. And I quit eating any food with lectins, and in the first 24 hours, half of my hip pain was gone. And within 3 days, all of my hip pain was totally gone. And I suffered with this for years. And I was in such pain sometimes I was in tears. I thought I wasn't going to be able to work. I was going to lose my boat. I was going to just end up not being able to even walk. And it saved me. So it works. but it's not easy cutting back on the foods that have lectins, because most of them are my favorite foods. So that's the hard part. But you know, I still eat whatever I want, and when the hip pain comes back, I just have to cut back. That's all. So works good for me. And these tomatoes don't look that great. I worked in horticulture research and development for 19 years, and I've grown pretty much every vegetable. Whenever you walk into a supermarket and you go into the produce section, I've grown pretty much everything that's in the supermarket, except for maybe like pineapple, some of the exotic things that you normally don't grow in California. And the thing about tomatoes is the reason they used to be really good when I was growing up, and then now it's hard to find good tasting tomatoes. And the reason for that is now tomatoes mostly are not picked by hand anymore, so they use machines to harvest the tomatoes. And so what they have is on the front of a tractor, they have these blades that just go and they cut the whole tomato plant. And then the machine shakes the plants and the tomatoes fall off, and then they have a crew of people sorting through on a belt to remove the bad tomatoes. But in order to use machinery to harvest tomatoes, the tomatoes have to be green, because it'll just squish them. It'll destroy the tomatoes if they're ripe. So they harvest them green, and then they can gas them to ripen them faster, or just let them naturally ripen. The thing is they're never as good as going out and picking a ripe tomato right off the plant when it's ready to be harvested. So that's why most tomatoes are really not very good these days. Okay, so now I'm going to cut the skins off. So I'm going to go and I'll probably do the skins first, because when I go to the seed part, it gets really messy. So, as a matter of fact, I'm going to move my onions out of the way. I love red onions. I've grown a lot of those. So I worked in horticulture research and development, and what we were doing was we were growing fruits and vegetables for dehydration. So I worked on different varieties that actually ended up in products like Lipton cup of soup and stovetop stuffing. So if you've ever eaten any of those products, there may be fruits and vegetables in there that I helped develop. So that was really cool. It was actually a very, very interesting job. So we didn't do genetic engineering. We did have some pepper plants we had a company back east in New York called DNA Plant Technology that genetically engineered some bell peppers for us. And this was back in late 1980s. And the bell peppers ended up only growing to about this big. Parthenocarpic is what it's called. And so they were real tiny little bell peppers, and it was a total waste of time and money. So we dumped the genetic engineering, and everything we did was through plant breeding and selection work. So that's what I did. I did plant breeding and selection. I also just did regular farming, because Research Farm is a farm. So, I plowed fields with big tractors and threw up beds and set out irrigation equipment and planted the seeds and irrigated, and I did all that stuff. So actually I miss doing that now. Actually a lot of work, but it's nice being outside and enjoying the weather and the sunshine and even the rain. I didn't even mind working in the rain sometimes. In the winter, we grew a lot of garlic for seed. We were the first company to develop garlic that you can plant from seed, because normally you plant garlic by breaking up the cloves and planting each individual little piece of garlic in the ground, and it has to be hand planted and has to be put in the ground the right way up or it won't grow right. And the problem with garlic seed is that it has a shell around it. And so if you try to plant, if you harvest garlic seed off a garlic plant and then try to plant the seed, the seed pretty much won't grow. Some of it does if the shell gets broken a little bit, but for the most part, yeah, you can't just plant it in the ground. You'll have a lot of skips in the row. So what we did was and it took several years to breed the shell out of the garlic seed. So now it was just the seed. And so we were the first people to do that. We developed the largest carrots in the world, and they were carrots that were like this big around. And I've selected these carrots doing selection work, and we've had carrots 3 feet long and this big around. A lot of, I'd give them to my friends because we'd have some that, because it was research, it was just, we weren't, nothing would go into a product until we were satisfied with what we had, and then we would mass seed produce the seeds, and then that way the farmers could grow them, and then they'd end up in the product. So we'd have to select the varieties that we wanted to go to market. And but I'd had a lot of carrots I could give away, and I'd give them to my friends. And I had one friend, it was the best carrot I've ever seen out of the research farm. It was just perfect. It was about this big around, cylindrical all the way down. It didn't taper. And we bred the taper out of them, and it was just beautiful. I gave it to a friend of mine, and they were so sweet. They tasted more like eating an apple. And so I gave that carrot to a friend of mine, and later on I asked him, so how was the carrot? And he goes, oh, we didn't need it. And I go, why not? Well, we thought you radiated it with radiation. And so we just threw it away. And I had to explain to him how we did this. And it took us 19 years, actually about 18 years to do the carrots. We bred jalapeno peppers, and we bred the heat out of them, so there was no heat. And so the reason for doing that was we come up with a product called Dial-A-Heat. And so when, like, if you're making salsa and you're making it to sell and big, mass produce it, the thing is, some people are real sensitive to hot foods and some people aren't. And so you can, you have a product and it's you put on there it's mild or whatever, and it ends up being too hot, and your customers get mad and they don't want to buy it. They won't buy it again because it said mild but it was hot, or it said it was hot but it wasn't hot enough. And so what we did was we bred the heat out of these peppers, and then what you do is use a heat extract. So you extract the heat out of them, other peppers, and then you can add the heat extract back into the product, so you can adjust the heat accordingly. Because hot peppers, the heat varies on the plant. One plant could have hotter peppers and ones that aren't as hot, and some of that is affected by temperature, and some of it's just genetic. So we developed that product. The carrots, the big carrots, the whole reason for the great big carrots was we were trying to develop carrot chips, like potato chips. So you need big carrots. And so we developed these, and like I said, it took 18 years to develop those big carrots. And we do trials out in growers' fields. So we take them out to farmers' fields, and they'd be growing carrots, and then we put in a trial, a small area in their field to see how they grew in production environment. And like I told my boss's boss, I go, the problem with these big carrots is digging them out of the ground. They're very hard to harvest because they're so big and they go down in the ground so deep, and it's very difficult to harvest them without damaging them. So that was a problem. So At any rate, we kind of scaled them back a little bit on the size, and then another company took over the research farm where I was working, and they totally changed the carrots, and then they were back to growing these little tiny carrots that were tapered and had a rat tail on them, and they tasted like wood, and they weren't that good. So, but yeah, I miss those carrots, the ones that we developed, because they were really good. Like I said, they're like eating an apple more than a carrot. They're incredible. So, at any rate, so the tomato's kind of small. So I'm just removing the skin, and this is how I do it. There's, other ways you can probably do this, but I found this to be easiest for me. And then removing the seeds is, like I said, kind of messy. But this is getting rid of the lectins. So, okay, so now I'm just going to cut out the areas that got the seeds in them. So I just do this. So there's going to be a lot of holes in these. That's why I cut them thick. Otherwise I wouldn't have anything left. So yeah, I can tell just by looking at these tomatoes they're not going to be that great. Basically, the redder they are, the better they are. So when they're not real red, they're generally not very good. So anyway, this is what I end up with. And there you go. So now pretty much most of the lectins are removed, except for this little piece I missed, the skin. And that's how I do it. So now this will go on the Portobello mushroom burger with the red onions, which I absolutely love red onions. I've grown a lot of those. And with the lettuce. And then I use, because mayonnaise, if you want to cut back on lectins, if you go and buy the average mayonnaise in the store and you read the ingredients, you'll see that the first ingredient on the list is soybeans, and soybeans are extremely high in lectins. So I found this product, and it's called Primal Kitchen Mayo Avocado Oil Mayonnaise, and it says real mayonnaise on it. And yeah, so I think I really doubt in the olden days when they made mayonnaise they used soybeans. So if you look, I mean, almost every mayonnaise manufacturer uses soybeans, but this does not have any soybeans in it. And it actually is really good. I actually like it as much, if not better. So I don't really notice a whole lot of difference between this and just regular old mayonnaise. So this is what I like to use. So I just put portobello mushroom, mayonnaise, lettuce, tomatoes, and onions. When I cook stew, the trick I found with that is that I used to use whole tomatoes and slice them up and stuff, and I stopped doing that. What I do is I get diced tomatoes. So they're already peeled. They peel them with hot steam. So I buy them in the can. And matter of fact, I got a can here I can show you. I buy them at Lucky's because Lucky's is just around the corner from me. But what I do is I buy diced tomatoes, and they've already been peeled with hot steam when they can them. And when they dice them, most of the seeds come out. So there's not a lot of seeds in them. And then what I do is I have a colander. I drilled out the holes to make them a little bit bigger. And I can show you. So this is the colander I use, and I drilled those holes out in the bottom to make them a little bit bigger. And that way the tomato seeds, I can wash them out through there. They'll go through those holes. And let's see if I got, oh yeah, I do have a can. And these tomatoes are really good. I think these things are like, the tomatoes are like harvested by hand, because these tomatoes right here taste really good. I've never had any bad ones. They're, as you can see, how red they are in the photograph, but these are really, really good. And so they're diced. So you can get these at, they're a Save Mart product, Save Mart and Lucky's. And so grown in Central California, and that's where the research farm was. Matter of fact, I grew up in Modesto, California. So the research farm was near there. They are picked at peak ripeness and minimal processing within 5 hours of harvest. So yeah, they're pretty much, I think, picked by hand. No additives, gluten-free, and peeled using only hot water and steam. Okay, and it says right here on the can, Save Mart Companies, Modesto, California. So yeah, if you can get your hands on these tomatoes here, they're the best canned tomatoes I've ever found. So they're really good. But I won't be using them today because I'm not making stew. And I do make some pretty damn good stew. My stew is so good I can eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm not kidding you. Okay, so I just need to continue on with this. So you got to kind of cut that white part where it's connected there towards the center, and then it just drops out. And I've just kind of make sure there's no other seeds in the vicinity. It's a little time consuming, but it's worth it. Like I said, I can do without joint pain. I'd rather take the time to do this than to end up with a lot of joint pain. I've made Portobello mushroom burgers on my inductant stove here. I've tried frying them in a pan. I have a convection oven. I've tried cooking them in the convection oven, and it works. But this is the first time I'm gonna make them over on a barbecue with charcoal. And so a friend of mine's a chef, and first Portobello mushroom burger I've ever had. He made one grilled on a barbecue with charcoal, and oh man, it was really good. And so I do this usually like Memorial Weekend, 4th of July, stuff like that. I'll make these. And I'm also having, as my little niece said when she was 4 years old, I was talking to her on the phone, and it was like 4th of July one year. It's a long time ago. And I asked her what she was having for dinner, and she said, chicken. I go, chicken? I go, what else? And I said, are you having corn on the cob? And she goes, no, we're not having corn on the hog. So we call it corn on the hog now. And that's what I'll be having, corn on the hog. I still tease her about it. She's all grown up. Like to do my prep work first and before I start cooking anything. That's the worst part about cooking is the prep work. The cooking part's kind of fun, but the prep work usually isn't. But the eating part's the best part. So this is my boat galley. And I just put in a new inductant stove, and that was in my last video last week. Actually, I just posted it today. So today's Sunday, Memorial Weekend. And so you can see the video on that. And I also put in a convection oven, and so I had another inductant stovetop, and I built this all, and it's gimbaled, so because I'm on sailboat that heels over. So I installed this Ninja full convection oven down below here, and then this inductant stovetop. The one I had lasted about 4 or 5 years, and then one burner went out, and then finally the other burner went out. And I think part of it was the cookware I was using. It was designed for gas cooking, so it had an air gap above here. And that may have been the reason. And I was also, when they went out, I was cooking a big, heavy pot of stew. And so that could have been the reason too, that it finally stopped working. So I bought another one, and I got the same brand, the same company, but a different model. And I like this model a lot better. The other one had a big burner, was like 1,800 watts, and then it had a smaller burner that was like 1,300 watts. And I wanted, when I bought the other one, I wanted both the burners to be the same, but I couldn't find one that would fit. But this company did finally make one with two 1,800 watt burners. So I don't think you can run both of them at 1,800 watts at the same time. But you can probably run them both at 900 watts at the same time if you want to. But if you've never checked out inductance stovetops, they're awesome. I put a little pot of water on here in my video. It's about an inch water in the bottom. It's a small pot, and it boiled water full boil within a little bit over a minute. When I tested my other one, I used that same pot, but over time, because the pot wasn't designed for inductance, it was real thin stainless steel, and it has to be stainless steel that has iron in it, or anything that has iron in it will work on an inductant stove, but anything that doesn't have iron in it, any pots or pans that doesn't have iron, if it's pure stainless steel with no iron in it, it will not work on here. I have a pressure cooker that's German-made, beautiful, awesome pressure cooker, but it's pure stainless, no iron in it, and won't work on here. But what I do is I put a skillet down first, and I put the pressure cooker on top of the skillet, so the skillet heats up the pressure cooker, and it works great. So that's one way around that problem. And so I have a really nice galley on my sailboat here. I got pressurized water. You can hear the pump running, kicking on and off. I got a small leak on my hot water tank, so that's why it's doing that. But yeah, I got pressurized water, and I got a foot pump, so I can, if I don't have any power to run this or some reason this stops working, I have a foot pump down here, and then I can pump water out of my water tanks, and it comes out of this faucet here. I got a nice microwave that's set in here, and back into the cabinet space. So yeah, and my refrigeration unit I have, it's top loading, it's right under here. And I custom built it. So I took a Engel portable refrigeration unit. So it's like an ice chest, but it's got a compressor in it, and it runs on either 120 volts or 12 volts DC. And I took all the guts out of it, and I installed it in which used to be an ice box on this boat. It was designed to put a big block of ice. Actually, in the back in the cockpit outside, there's a compartment. You put a block of ice in there, and then there's a big opening on the side of it. So the cold from the block of ice goes in. Because cold air sinks, it goes into your refrigeration area where you keep your food. And the reason they separate the block and you don't want to put it in with the food is because if it's in with the food, when it melts, then your food gets all wet and you ruin your food. So that's how this boat was designed originally. And so I didn't want to use blocks of ice, and I wanted real refrigeration. So I installed this, the interior parts of this Engel cooler. It's a 35 quart cooler. And I'm telling you, once I put a baffle in between the evaporator, and so the evaporator is the part that gets cold, and that's the freezer side. And then the cold air from the freezer side spills over because the baffle doesn't go all the way to the ceiling, to the top of to the cover. There's an air gap space there. And so the cold air from the freezer goes over to this other side, and that's the refrigerator side. So it works really, really good. I like beer in bottles, and I like it if I can take beer and put it in an ice chest with ice and let it set for hours, just totally buried in ice, and it's just not cold enough for me. I like my beer to be almost frozen when I drink it. And I put my beer in the freezer side, and it normally doesn't freeze. Occasionally it does. I'll get a bottle once in a while that's frozen. I pop it open, and it's a mess. But usually the beer doesn't freeze, but any other, I think the freezing temperature on beer is a little lower than on water. If I put bottles of water over there, the bottles of water will freeze for sure, but the beer normally doesn't. So my refrigeration works really good. The problem is top loading refrigeration is kind of a pain because every time you want something, you have to dig for it because it's usually down on the bottom, and you got a bunch of other things on top you have to take out to get to it. So that's the problem with top loading. But the good thing about top loading is when you open up the lid, the cold air doesn't come out like on a regular refrigerator at home. When you open it up, the cold air comes out. So at any rate, now I am done with the prep work pretty much, just the lettuce. I got to prep the corn, and all I do with that is I bought packaged corn because unfortunately I couldn't get, I like yellow corn. I'm not real crazy about white corn. White corn, they bred the beta carotene out of the corn, which is the healthiest thing about corn. Beta carotene, your body converts to vitamin A, and you can't overdose. You can overdose on vitamin A, but you can't overdose on beta carotene. And so yellow corn's higher in beta carotene, and I think yellow corn tastes better than white corn. And unfortunately, the store didn't have any. It seems like all they sell now is white corn. Everybody wants white corn. I don't know why. I don't care for it much, but I found the white corn that was the most yellow color that I could find in the store. It was in packages. So I got 8 ears of that, and it's got some little corn husk on one side. So I just got to take the husk off, and then what I do is I'm going to coat them with olive oil and then put them on the barbecue. So when I cook those too. So getting ready, about ready to light my barbecue. So next month, I'll be a liveaboard on a boat for 20 years. And this is the first time I've barbecued on either one of my boats. So this will be a first. This barbecue was given to me by a neighbor that was selling their sailboat, and they just bought a powerboat. So I used to be a river guide in Oregon, and used to do 3, 4, and 5 day trips, and I'd cook for 30 people on camp trips. We do camp trips and lodge trips, and when we weren't going into a lodge, I'd be cooking. And so that was back in the 80s, and I used to be able to cook over an open fire on the river. I doubt if you can do that now. And but I used to cook like game hens stuffed with wild rice, and like a complete Thanksgiving dinner on the river. So it was pretty awesome. It really impressed the customers that we had. And so I'm going to try this now. So I think I'll cook the corn first, and then go with the portobello mushrooms. See how this goes. So let's see what happens. I coated the corn with olive oil, garlic salt, and pepper. Whoa, I think I got too much oil. I got a problem already. All right, I have to be careful here. Otherwise I'm going to burn this corn. Wow, I didn't think olive oil was that flammable. So I'm going to have to turn this corn. I think I'm cooking it a little too fast here. Let's kind of close this down a little bit. I think I should have waited till this fire cooled down a little bit. This is really hot. Looks like Indian corn. It's got a bunch of black kernels. Well, it was white corn, but we won't tell anybody. Now I can put on the portobellos. I may just go ahead and put them this way first, and then I'll flip them. A lot of times people just cook them with the top side down. I'm going to do the bottom side down just a little bit, just for a minute. I'm going to have to be careful because I got a bunch of olive oil on the bottom of this bowl with the marinade. So it's going to start flaming up. That might be a problem. I'll just flip them over. I got a lot of garlic on there, but I like lots of garlic. Oh, that looks good. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip them all over now. Just kind of cooking them slightly. off now. Well, I don't know. Looks a little charred, a little charbroiled here. No telling what it's going to taste like. Well, here's my ice cold beer in my out of my nice ice cold refrigerator that I put together. So cheers. I better start with a drink first. Well, the beer tastes good. Let's see what happens here. All right, here goes. Awesome. Wow. That's really good. I got the most burnt pieces to put together just to see how the burnt ones are going to taste. And I'll tell you what, that's pretty damn good. Now let's try the corn. Awesome. Wow. I pulled it off. Don't believe it. These are really good. Just try it again just to make sure. This is the best Portobello mushroom burger I ever made. And because it was cooked on barbecue using charcoal. And it's perfect. It's really good. So, I don't know if you found this video to be helpful, but I'm sure it was kind of entertaining. So please like and subscribe. And by the way, have a happy Memorial weekend.